On Tech News today, the NSA is caught hacking Huawei. Apple wants special treatment by Comcast. Microsoft won't get Nokia's phone business until April. And Cisco is getting into the cloud business. All that and more coming up next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, March 24th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT. And by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Mike Elgin.
And I'm Jason Howell.
Tech News Today explores the big stories of the day in conversation with some of the world's leading journalists. Our guest co-anchor today is Donna Tam, a writer for CNET. Welcome, Donna.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Well, yeah, you didn't have coffee this morning. You told me before the show started, but you don't need it because this show is so exciting that it's just like drinking a big espresso. So
can't wait, yeah.
So buckle your seatbelts. Let's get right into the news. The U.S. government has long accused Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei of selling equipment compromised by code that enabled spying and hacking. Well, a new report in the German magazine Der Spiegel says that it's true, but it's not the Chinese government doing the spying and hacking. It's the NSA. With us to talk about this story is one of the investigative reporters who broke the story, Holger Stark, senior correspondent for Der Spiegel. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, can you tell us more about the NSA hacking of Huawei? Why did they target the company, and how did they do it?
Well, they almost started with an operation they called Shot Giant like a decade ago in the mid of the 2000s, and they saw Huawei as a potential intelligent threat to the United States. They were afraid that Huawei, which is today the second most important network infrastructure company worldwide, has been something like a joint venture with the Chinese intelligence agencies. So they first said, we need to investigate if this proves to be true. And they broke into Huawei's network in almost 100 places. They entered the network at the company's headquarters in Shenzhen. They got access to the mail of the CEO, Reng Zhengfei. They acquired the customers list and even the source codes of Huawei.
Now, so what you're saying is that they suspected that the company was being used for hacking. They went in to find out. They hacked the company to find out if that was going on. And then once inside the company, they realized that they could use, they could essentially do what they were accusing the Chinese of doing and go in and hack the company. Now, Huawei has all kinds of interesting customers to the U.S. intelligence organization, including Iran, Cuba, and others. Was that part of the incentive, do you think, according to these documents, why they wanted to go in there and really just kind of use Huawei's equipment and services to hack companies?
That was definitely one of the goals. It is mentioned in a document from 2010, an internal secret document from the NSA, that they could use some knowledge about Huawei's technology to acquire or to conduct new operations against countries like you mentioned, Iran and others. But on the other hand, you can clearly see that the White House, which has been involved, and others just wanted to learn more about the threat. They said Huawei poses a unique threat to the United States because it's an unusual mixture of a military structure, of a private company, of a new innovative company. And they said that we need to learn more about that also for competition for the future. And that's something which is far away from doing counterterrorism or counter-espionage activities. That's basically close to industrial espionage.
But you didn't find any actual evidence of industrial espionage, did you? I mean, they accessed the source code and so on, so it seems like they were in a good position to commit industrial espionage. But was there any indication that there was a desire or an attempt to do this?
There is no indication that the NSA provided any of those information to American companies like Cisco, Apple, Microsoft, or others. But I think after 10 years, you clearly should know if a company is affiliated with the Chinese intelligence agencies or with the Chinese military, or if it's just doing its business like every other ordinary company on the world. And according to the documents, at least up to 2010, we didn't see any indication that there is an affiliation with the official Chinese government, the intel agencies, or the military.
Now, one of the astonishing facts in all this is that before the Snowden revelations hit, immediately before, days before they hit, President Obama was scheduled to meet with the Chinese president, essentially to lecture him about Chinese hacking of American companies and American targets, and this really turned the tables in a very big way. Of course, the Chinese government is demanding answers from the U.S. government. But you mentioned in your report that the White House and the FBI were especially involved. Was this unusual for them to be involved in the way that these documents indicate that they were?
Well, this is clearly an operation which hasn't been conducted only in Fort Meade at the NSA's headquarters. This is definitely something that has been done altogether by the American authorities and with knowledge of the White House. So the whole American government saw this threat posed by Huawei as a very, very urgent one. I think it shows, in a way, the hypocrisy of the American government, because they for a long time accused the Chinese to hack against American companies, and now it turns out that it's also the other way around, that also a Chinese company is a target for American intelligence agencies. It will make it much harder to argue for Obama and every other American official towards the Chinese and to stop them doing their espionage.
Yeah, it seems to me that one perspective on this particular story, I mean, it comes to us as yet another grinding revelation in the Snowden documents, just yet another of its kind, but this is actually different in a way. In a way, this is the kind of hacking, this is the kind of espionage that the NSA is supposed to be doing. They have a rival superpower, if you will. They're looking into what they're doing. They're seeing if they have any opportunities to spy on other rivals, regional powers like Iran and others, using this the means of hacking Huawei. So that sounds on its face like, you know, regular espionage, the kind that we expect the NSA to be doing. But it's this hypocrisy that you mentioned that is particularly grueling. I mean, the U.S. has been banning Huawei products, essentially issuing reports in Congress saying that Huawei is probably compromised by the Chinese government and the People's Liberation Army, and that this is why they put various bans and blocks on the purchase of this equipment. And it's really, you know, spectacularly ironic and hypocritical that it turns out that, in fact, the equipment was compromised even worse than they had accused, but in fact the compromisers were the United States itself. So that's really, to me, that's really the case. But is that a legitimate viewpoint? Is this legit? If you set aside the hypocrisy, is this an example, do you think, of legitimate espionage?
Well, I would see legitimate espionage in operations when intelligence agencies conduct operations against other intelligence agencies. So if the NSA would target the Chinese military, the Chinese intelligence services, it's also clear that operations against the leadership of a foreign country like China is in a way legitimate espionage. I think in this specific case, when it comes to Huawei, this is far beyond of the self-declared standards that the American government renewed. I mean, President Obama just said in January in his speech that he really will focus on legitimate operations. He mentioned counterterrorism. He mentioned counter-proliferation and other things. It's this mantra of national security, which they used this time to justify this operation. I personally I'm really skeptical, and I think it has much to do with an approach that not only the NSA but also the American government declared like almost 20 years ago. General Kenneth Minihan, the at that time director of the NSA, said already in 1969, it's all about one goal. It's about American information superiority in the internet, and that says a lot. And they see Huawei clearly as a threat to that information superiority.
Yeah, and we actually have a story later on in the show that demonstrates that with its U.S. rival Cisco and how they're struggling and what they're doing to deal with the rising influence and power of Huawei as a rival company. Now, I saw only the preview that was posted in English and there's a much longer piece coming out. And the preview mentioned other companies besides Huawei. We focus in on Huawei because they're a major technology company, but of course there are many other targets. Were any of those other targets, the other companies that were mentioned in the report, major Chinese companies that that we may have heard of?
There are some major telecommunication companies around, but I don't want to disclose the names of them. This is a tightrope walk, and we want to be on the safe side because this also concerns legitimate intelligence operations. So please let me be decent on this way and only say it's a couple of major Chinese telecommunications companies.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on Tech News today and telling us about this story, and also congratulate you on the exclusive here. It was a devastatingly good story, and again, I thank you. Thanks
so much for having me.
You can find Holger and his work on spiegel.de and also on Twitter at Holger Stark. That's Holger_Stark, S-T-A-R-K. Well, in a sec, we're going to talk about Apple's talks with Comcast and how they're trying to get themselves some special treatment. But first, I want to tell you about Squarespace. Squarespace is an incredible place that enables you to build a wonderful, fantastic, beautiful website. You start with one of 25 beautiful templates, and then you can modify it to your heart's content to create a website that's exactly what you need for your business, for your projects, for your portfolio, you name it. You can build a website for any purpose you like using Squarespace, and it's really, really easy to do. If you ever need tech support or help of any kind, their chat and email support is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've used it myself. It's fantastic service. A real human being who knows what they're talking about will get right back to you and answer your question. It's very rare in the industry these days, and I really appreciate that. They also have a completely redesigned customer help site with self-help articles and video workshops to help you learn how to be a much better manager and creator of a website. Now, if you have a small business and you want to sell things, Squarespace is the place to go. They've somewhat recently added e-commerce to all subscription plan levels. I actually, before I started using Squarespace myself, I wanted to have the option to eventually add in commerce, and I could tell that Squarespace was the kind of company that would add it, and lo and behold, they did. And now they enable you to take money, not just for selling things online, but also if you have some kind of nonprofit or a cash wedding registry or a school fund drive, anything you might be doing that requires the collection of money, they make it super easy. They also have a logo creator tool. If you have a small business and you're selling things online, you can create your own professional logo, and once you're done, you can trademark that, and that can be your logo for all times. And of course, you can see the video of how this works at blog.squarespace.com. They have some other interesting things on their blog as well, so you want to check that out. Squarespace starts at only $8 a month, and that includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. It's also mobile ready. Squarespace websites look fantastic on phones, on Android phones, on iPhones, on tablets, you name it. It redesigns itself every time for the device so that it's native to the device that people are looking at it on. So that's very, very important. So start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT. That'll get you a 10% discount, and you'll also show your support for Tech News Today, and we appreciate that. We also thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today, and remember that a better web awaits, and it starts with your new Squarespace website. Well, Apple is talking to Comcast about streaming TV. The deal will give users of future Apple TV box an advantage in getting past network congestion, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. John Brodkin, a reporter for Ars Technica, is here with us to explain some of this. Welcome, John.
Hey there.
Now, if the report is true, it appears that Apple wants preferential treatment without being technically given higher priority in a way that violates net neutrality. Can you explain that?
Yeah, Comcast agreed to some net neutrality rules when it acquired NBC Universal, and so until 2018, it can't give preferential access to any providers like Netflix or whoever. There is an exception for something called managed or specialized services, which is loosely defined. So basically, Apple and Comcast would be testing how loose this definition is. They would be basically saying that video that goes to Apple TV would be a managed service and thus could get its own path separate from all other internet traffic. They claim it wouldn't be faster than other internet traffic, but it would get its own path, so it wouldn't slow down. It would be just like watching cable TV, where usually you're not getting a degraded performance like you might sometimes with Netflix.
So you're saying that they're arguing that it would reduce the sort of stop and go kind of traffic. It would be more steady, but it wouldn't necessarily be faster. Is that correct?
That is what the leak to the Wall Street Journal is claiming, and it seems like it seems like a trial balloon. They're putting it out there and describing it in a way where their lawyers think it won't violate their net neutrality obligations. And
what do you think? Is that just some BS way to get around net neutrality?
That's what the consumer advocates like Public Knowledge would say. To me, it really does show how loose these regulations are. That, I mean, presumably AT&T and Comcast have pretty smart lawyers, and they've read through these regulations and they've found a loophole. Based on their past success, they probably have a pretty good chance of making it happen. But so the only way around it would be for probably the FCC to write a stronger rule that's more specific.
And they still haven't written their rule, right? I mean, we're still waiting for them to write a new rule since the recent invalidation of their old rule. And they could word it in such a way that would invalidate this sort of thing, couldn't they?
Yeah, they could. So the Comcast has its own rules because of that acquisition, but the FCC is writing new rules that will apply to the whole industry. AT&T on Friday was arguing that they should explicitly allow any sort of pay-for-play arrangements, and AT&T is actually claiming that they'll lower customer bills if they have the right to charge Netflix and whoever else for service, which, it sounds unlikely, but hey, you never know.
Now, it sounds to me like Apple is trying to get something that everybody wants. All their competitors want the ability to stream live TV, to not be, slowed down by neighborhood traffic or last mile traffic. Why would anybody, why would Comcast provide this to Apple and not to others? Or would they do this for others? And if they did do this for others, wouldn't that defeat the whole purpose? Isn't Apple trying to get away from all the other traffic here? And if Comcast were to do this for several providers, for several companies that are in competition with Apple, for example, Amazon is coming out with one, Google, you name it, Roku, et cetera, is there any indication that this would be sort of a new policy for Comcast, a new way to drive new revenue? And again, if that was the case, wouldn't this defeat the purpose?
Yeah, well, under their agreement, if they offer this to Apple, they actually have to offer it on non-discriminatory terms to other companies as well. I'm a little skeptical that this will actually happen because, well, first of all, it's early in the negotiations, but if Comcast gave Apple this could make it easier for people to not buy Comcast cable TV. So my suspicion is that Comcast would only do this in a way if it was restricted enough that it was somehow tied to your Comcast cable account, so you couldn't actually buy Apple TV and still cut the cord.
Very interesting. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and explaining this to us, John. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, you can find John's work at arstechnica.com and on Twitter at jbrodkin, J-B-R-O-D-K-I-N. Well, with us to talk about the unlikelihood that this will ever happen is Andrew Wallenstein, editor-in-chief of Variety, and he joins us now. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Good to be here.
Now, you said that this deal is very unlikely. It sounds like John agrees with you. Why do you think it's unlikely?
Yeah, you have to take a look at the history of negotiations between Apple and the studios and the media companies going back to 2006. They simply can't get a deal done. There has been so many attempts by Apple to co-opt the pay TV business in so many different ways, and it just rarely works. I don't see why it'll be any different this time. The market vectors surrounding all this don't suggest it's particularly auspicious for a deal.
Well, now, Apple had been working with, talking with all of the cable providers, including Time Warner Cable, and they seem to be making a lot more headway with Time Warner Cable, of course, which is now in the midst of a pending merger with Comcast. Do you think that will affect Apple's prospects for a deal with Comcast, given that they seem to have a better relationship with Time Warner Cable?
I mean, I would question whether any conversation with Time Warner Cable at this point really ever had any headway, because I think that is debatable. Even if it did, I think those talks are effectively moot now that Comcast is trying to acquire the company, and obviously that is going to be very contentious at the federal level. But then when you really get into Comcast and you look at the kind of company they don't really play with others when it comes to sharing the pay TV pipe. They have very few deals of this kind that we're discussing with Apple here. I think this would be a tough deal to make.
Apple is not very good at playing well with others either, so that probably reduces the chances of some kind of deal. You got two headstrong companies that like to do it all themselves going head-to-head here. Do you think the fact that Comcast does have that sort of attitude reduce? I mean, well, first of all, let me just ask you, what do you think the chances are that the merger with Time Warner Cable will be scuttled by regulators? Do you think there's any chance of that?
I think there is a very real chance of that. But to some degree, I think it's almost immaterial to what we're talking about here. Even without Time Warner Cable, Comcast is a huge company with a lot of clout, and there's really no better place for Apple to go than Comcast to do this kind of deal, because even without Time Warner Cable, they've got the largest footprint in the pay TV space in the U.S.
Now, the history of Apple in Hollywood seems to be one in which Apple is constantly talking, always in talks with all these companies, and nothing ever comes about. It seems pretty clear to me that Hollywood is scared to death of Apple. Would you agree with that? And if so, why is that?
Oh, I think it's very clear. Look at what happened to the music business. The TV business is very smart, and they're taking a very defensive posture. And I think they come to this wiser in a way that the music business didn't wake up to until it was too late. They are simply not going to do a deal that disadvantages their business greatly. And yes, you'll argue perhaps that, well, look at the cord cutting going on. But at the end of the day, I don't think that is happening at levels yet that really weakens the leverage of pay TV companies. So this is a tough one.
So what would it take to do a deal with Comcast? I mean, like, at what point will Comcast say, this is something we want? When will it really benefit them to partner with someone like Apple?
When the deal terms are sufficient that it's not as if Comcast is giving everything away. They don't really need to. If you look at Comcast, and this is really a matter of public record, they're modeling themselves after Apple. They're trying to be Apple. You can see that in what they're doing with their own set-top technology. And therefore, it's almost hard to envision a scenario unless the deal terms are greatly reduced in terms of what Apple's bringing to the table here, where this could work. So, yeah, I'm skeptical.
All right. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on and explaining this. I really like Variety.com. I think technology people who like good technology content should not overlook Variety, even though it's a Hollywood publication. You have some really great stuff, and I appreciate you coming on today.
You just made my day, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. You can find Andrew's work at Variety.com, of course, and on Twitter at A. Wallenstein. That's with 2 L's.
Thanks.
Well, Microsoft's $7.2 billion deal to acquire Nokia's phone business has been delayed, apparently. The acquisition was expected to be done by the end of this month, but now it probably won't happen until the end of April. The holdup is Asian regulatory approval, probably Chinese, and this is according to Nokia, which posted a letter essentially announcing this deal. Now, Donna, do you think that this deal is going to, I want to talk just generally about Microsoft and Nokia. Do you think that Microsoft's purchase of Nokia is a good thing? Is going to result in better devices or any sort of improvement in the standing of Windows Phone in the market?
Well, I think that's really hard to say. I mean, they're so far behind that it's kind of, I'm not sure if like that partnership would even help them, because Nokia's phones, I mean, they've been making them with Microsoft for a while now, right? And I mean, I think we've seen that hasn't gained as much steam as they would like to,
Yeah. Yeah, and Bloomberg reported that Huawei and Samsung are two companies that are complaining to the Chinese government because they're worried about higher cross-licensing fees. I guess Microsoft has a reputation worldwide as a high-priced company for everything, software, licensing fees, you name it. But what do you think of the prospects are that this will be denied by, say, the Chinese government or any other government around the world? It seems to me kind of inevitable and kind of a sort of a waste of effort to delay it. But what do you think?
I mean, I think you might be right. I mean, they're a big company, right? Microsoft is huge, and they probably have a lot of pull. And, you know, I can't speak a lot to what the Chinese regulators will do, but, you know, I think you could be right there. Sometimes
these regulators have to kind of make a big show of looking at things carefully and stuff like that, so they don't just rubber stamp stuff that domestic companies are concerned about. Happens in the U.S. as well. So that's really an interesting development that is delayed. Everybody's waiting for it, especially Microsoft and its new CEO. And of course, European Union and U.S. Regulators approved this back in December, and the sale was announced in September. So it's been a while now since this was announced and approved in some countries. So I guess we can look forward to that at sort of the end of April at the earliest. So we'll be looking at that. Well, Cisco plans to spend $1 billion on new data centers over the next 2 years to compete with Amazon in the cloud services market. Called Cisco Cloud Services, the new offering is very different from Cisco's previous business of selling network equipment. This is an interesting thing because Amazon, Donna, is really kind of the leader here, and it looks like they're going after Amazon. Do you think that they will have any success in competing with the mighty Amazon in this space?
Well, I mean, I think Cisco has a history of being able to make it work in the enterprise space. So I think they actually have, sounds like they have the deep pockets to go against Amazon. That said, I mean, they're already so entrenched in this particular market, right? I mean, they're huge. Everyone relies on them, and they've done really well in coming into a space that was already, you know, had a bunch of players in it, I think, you know, and they came in and still were able to take over essentially. But Cisco has, like I said, deep pockets, and I think it'll be really interesting to see if they can shake up Amazon a little bit, which probably will be very good for that market.
It probably will, and we mentioned earlier when we were talking about Huawei, one of the reasons that Cisco is doing this, according to some analysts, is that they're getting squeezed by Huawei, which is selling competitive products at lower prices globally to Cisco's customers, and so the business of selling actual hardware is becoming more and more problematic. Although now, ironically, the revelation that the NSA is hacking Huawei equipment may help Cisco in the global market, but it looks like they're expanding into the cloud services industry, which is a good move anyway, even if they weren't being squeezed by Huawei, because that's essentially where the world is going. A lot more cloud revenue floating around, and they want a piece of it. It's also interesting to me that they're making a big show of saying that they're not competing directly against Amazon. Amazon tends to go after startups and smaller companies and so on, and Cisco is going after the biggest enterprises. So they seem to be coming from the top of the market down, whereas Amazon tends to start at the bottom up. I don't know. They're still competitors as far as I can tell. So we'll see how that goes. Well, we're going to do a quick follow-up on what's happening in Turkey, but first I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is one of our sponsors today, and I recommend them highly. If there was a single place you could go where you could do all of your hiring and find the best people to hire, I would recommend that place. People post their jobs, and the best candidates are scattered all over the place, which is exactly why you need ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter enables you to hunt for the best qualified candidates on 50-plus job sites all at once with a single click. It's really fantastic. It also will help you post your job on social networks like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. That's the other place where the best candidates are. They're all over social media. So this brings it all together and enables you to do it very quickly and simply. There's just one problem, though. With all of these candidates coming in from all these different sites, you're going to be flooded with candidates for your job, and ZipRecruiter helps you with that as well. They can automatically narrow down the most qualified candidates for you, so you're not weeding through every unqualified candidate. You only have to take a look at the ones who meet your qualifications, and you can start from there without being overwhelmed by people you're never going to hire anyway. So go to ZipRecruiter.com and automatically find the best candidates. You screen them, you rate them, and then you hire the right person fast. Try ZipRecruiter and find out why they've been used by over 100,000 businesses. Right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial by going to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT, ZipRecruiter.com/TNT, and we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Well, we told you Friday that after Turkey's government blocked Twitter in that country, a viral campaign of graffiti spread the word about Google's public DNS service, which helped users get around the block. Yeah, it was really weird to see people spray painting DNS addresses, 8.8.8.8, all over Istanbul. But over the weekend, the Turkish government blocked that too. Twitter users are still able to get around the block by either using other DNS servers or by using a VPN or the Tor network. But it's really another step, escalation by the government in the blocking of Twitter, which they claim broke the law. Essentially, the law that they broke was an edict that Twitter censor the social network within Turkey, and that didn't go so well. This seems to me, Donna, to be a super colossal mistake by the Turkish government, because all they're doing is they're bringing attention to the power of Twitter. They are bringing attention to the people who are on Twitter and opposing the government, and they're essentially demonstrating to the world that you really can't easily suppress a service like Twitter. I mean, don't you think that this is just like one of the biggest political mistakes that a country can make in terms of technology and freedom of speech?
I mean, I do think like a lot of these countries aren't realizing, you know, just how difficult it is to keep this stuff down. I mean, people want information, and the internet has done this remarkable thing in giving them the space for that. And I think you're right. It seems like, just why are you even like, what do they think they're going to do in the end? It seems like, you know, are they just trying to take a stand just for that fact? It does seem like a poor choice.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And, you know, the other thing, the good news actually, is that this is bringing a lot of attention to Google's public DNS service, which is a fantastic service in which people around the world should use and can use for a variety of reasons. I think lots of people who didn't know about it before now have heard of it and may try it and so on. Even though it's blocked in Turkey for now, there may be people in other countries who may be wanting to try that to see how that goes. Well, Donna, this all went very quickly. I want to thank you for being our guest co-anchor today, and I hope you come back again soon. It's been really great to have you on.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks again. And if you would like to subscribe to Tech News Today, I really encourage you to do that. You can do that at twit.tv/TNT. You can subscribe to either the audio version or the video version. Take your pick, or both, which is what I do. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tech News Today TV. You can join our Google Plus community and also circle our page. And you can find them both by searching for Tech News Today on Google Plus. We also want to hear from you, so send us an email at tnt@twit.tv. And also, don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight. My name is Mike Elgin. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.